Too soon.
That's cruel and unusual punishment. You're mostly sleeping. The first day, Geneva Code. The Geneva Code of...
The Geneva Convention, cruel and unusual punishment.
Okay, so let's look at the thyroid gland. By the way, I want you to look for the thyroid gland in your cat. You know when you... and when you look for it, be careful. I don't want you to puncture the larynx because we're going to blow into that one so you can see how your lungs work. So be very careful. But one thing you notice about... There's two things that you will appreciate about your glands. The thyroid gland, it looks like flesh, something like a piece of meat, but it's really a gland. And then when you go to your kidneys, maybe I'll let you open up the abdomen. Just look, you will see the kidney. On top of the kidney is like something really fat. You've seen how fat looks like. We know how pork chop looks like, right? So you see the kidneys, you know how the kidneys look like. And then on top of the kidneys, so this is your kidneys. There's the renal artery. On top of the kidney, there's something fatty. That's the adrenal gland. So that's two representatives of how your endocrine glands look like. One looks like fleshy meat, and the other one is fatty. Okay? So if you put your hand or your fingers right here, you'll feel the nodule here. That's your thyroid gland you swallow. Do you know the Adam's apple? This is called the thyroid cartilage. That's why it's called thyroid cartilage, because you go all the way to the back. That is where you will feel your thyroid gland. And if you see, the big cartilage there is called the thyroid cartilage. And if we cut this, do a tissue section of the thyroid gland, this is the easiest to identify of all the slides there. This is how it looks like. I know you remember simple cuboidal epithelium, right? So these are, the thyroid gland is made up of follicles. This is called a follicle, okay? And the cells around it are the ones that make your thyroid hormones. Following? So this is called follicular cells. And then there are cells, you see, look at this one. The follicular cells surround the fluid right here. This fluid is called the colloid. Colloid. So the cells that surround the colloid is called follicular cells. These cells are the ones that make your thyroid hormone, the T3 and T4. So they make your thyroid hormone and then they dump it in here. It's stored here in the colloid. And it's going to be released into the blood. There's your blood vessel right here. It's going to be released into the blood every time you need it. Okay? Then there's another group of cells here. Look at, there's cells here that's not surrounding the follicle, right? You call them parafollicular cells. Okay? And the parafollicular cells, do you remember your calcitonin? That's your calcium lowering hormone, remember? That's the one. Those are the cells that make it. So your thyroid gland secretes parafollicular cells also. Secretes calcitonin. Okay?
It secretes calcitonin, which is
Isn't that the
the
one?
parafollicular.
The parafollicular cells secretes calcitonin. So again, the thyroid gland is made up of two general groups of cells, follicular cells and parafollicular cells. The parafollicular cells, they're the ones that make the calcitonin that tells your bones to store the calcium, right? It lowers the calcium in the blood. Okay? Now, we're going to look at these thyroid hormones, the T3 and T4. These are your metabolism hormone. Isn't metabolism part of life, right? As long as you're alive, you have need for thyroid hormones. What is metabolism? Isn't this the day-to-day activity? Think heart rate. Think breathing. You just breathe normally, regularly. You don't. It's your thyroid hormone that regulates that, right? Okay? All the things. Growth is part of metabolism. So the thyroid hormone really exerts a general effect. Just life itself. Metabolism is key to life, isn't it? Right? And so again, metabolism, you need energy. So look at it, increases the use of glucose again. See? It's all these hormones we're talking about. They are enemies of insulin. It's terrible if we think about it. If we take them for granted, there's no other sugar lowering hormone, just only insulin. Okay? So what I want you to remember before we move on with your metabolism is, how do we make thyroid hormones? Write down the word iodine. To make thyroid hormone, your follicular cells need iodine. You remember in the past, before they iodized the salt, there was a lot of hypothyroidism cases. But now, we have the iodized salt. You see the bread is also fortified with iodine, so we don't worry. It's not as much of a problem as back in the
Isn't
day.
it from the fact that they're not using the iodized salt anymore? They're using the mineral salt or the not mineral salt, sea salt.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I think
I think
yeah.
that's
That's because we just, I don't know why because they're thinking maybe it's for high blood pressure or the salt sum. Just stick to the normal level. What is it? That's a very liberal amount, they say. The Surgeon General, what is it? 1,500 milligrams of sodium a day for us. I think that's a lot.
The thyroid hormone, I saw this one person, it's like swelling.
Yes, it will swell.
Cortisol going out.
What did you say?
It's like swelling. It's like a lump. I don't know, is it a tumor or what it is?
goiter?
It's like swelling both sides.
It's a tumor, yeah, it's goiter. It will swell. We're going to see how it swells, okay? This is one of the common. By the way, any kind of endocrine surgery is always a bloody surgery. Does it make sense? Why? Because your endocrine glands makes hormones and their products are always secreted into the blood. So every endocrine gland is always abundantly supplied by blood. So anytime you assist in an endocrine surgery, you know that there's always blood on standby. Okay? Look at, to be able to make your thyroid hormone, you need iodine with the amino acid tyrosine. So those two ingredients, when they're present, your follicle cells will make the T3 and T4 and they store it here in the colloid. And every time you need it, they just are secreted into the blood. So you have to have normal thyroid hormone levels at all times. When you're pregnant, you have to have normal thyroid hormones. If it's low, you can lose the pregnancy, lose the baby. Metabolism, it's metabolism hormone. But what's the side effect? Hyperglycemia again. These are all hyperglycemic hormones. Don't forget that iodine. I remember in the test, I had a section, I don't know about your test now, right? But in my past test, there was a section where I will say, please write down the endocrine gland that is probably not working or probably abnormally functioning in the following cases. Or maybe I will write, please write down the endocrine gland that will respond to the following cases, either or. That's what I used to do in the past. So maybe I'll say iodine deficiency. What endocrine gland do you think? You're going to write your thyroid gland or thyroid hormone. How about calcium? You can write thyroid, right? Because it secretes calcitonin. You can also write parathyroid gland, which is our next gland because it secretes the parathyroid hormone. Okay? I just remember in the past, maybe I'll do the same for you. Okay? Do you understand that? Okay? How about sugar? Maybe I'll write hyperglycemia, hypo. I hope you understand this. Hyper. Hyper means high, hypo means low, right? So, and please read the question very well, okay? If I ask you what endocrine gland, you're not going to write the hormone, you're going to write the gland. So for hyperglycemia, hypoglycemia, you're not going to write insulin, glucagon. You're going to write pancreas. Okay? So here, with your thyroid gland, it's the one that's responsible for our metabolism. It's the one that stimulates carbohydrate. It's just regular metabolism, day-to-day activity. So, common conditions. Elevated rate of oxygen consumption, energy, red blood cell, every activity that is necessary to life is regulated by your thyroid hormones. So you have two common conditions, hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism. First is hyperthyroidism is increased. By the way, whether you're hyper or hypothyroid, you will always present with a neck mass. Your first worksheet, you need to master that first worksheet on the thyroid gland, because I don't know about your coming up test again, but in the past, I had something similar to that thyroid gland flow chart for your test. So look at your thyroid secretes your thyroid hormones. And this one is controlled by my pituitary. Okay? And then the pituitary is controlled by my hypothalamus. So, let's see. What if the thyroid gland is not working? If the thyroid gland is not working, that means the T3, the hormones, are it's not secreting enough thyroid hormones. So it will exert a negative feedback, right? It will go tell the pituitary to secrete more thyroid stimulating hormones. So it will keep stimulating my thyroid gland. So because it keeps stimulating my thyroid gland, it will increase in size. That's hypothyroidism. Sometimes, when this is very sensitive, your tumor is from the pituitary, it's secreting too much TSH, and the thyroid increases in size, and it's secreting too much thyroid hormones, hyperthyroidism. So whether you are hyper or hypothyroid, you will present with a neck mass. The only definitive diagnosis is by means of blood work to find out. Do you understand? Does it make sense? This is not working for hypothyroidism. If it's not working, the pituitary will tell it to negative feedback. It's just automatic. It will tell it to try and secrete more, but it's just not working. So it will increase in size, but it's not secreting. In another condition, you may have a tumor here in your pituitary that is targeting your thyroid, and it's increasing in size, also secreting lots of hormones because it's healthy. Your tumor is there. So you have a neck mass either with hyper or hypothyroidism. You know, one of the things that you know if a patient has hyper, that protruding eyeballs, right? Called exophthalmos. Exophthalmos, right there. Why does it protrude? Remember? Do you remember metabolism Cell division, you remember that? When you have high metabolism, cell division is high also. Cell division is part of metabolism, part of life, right? The only time your cell division activity will end is when you're dead, right? Cell division replaces our hair, skin, everything. Our shed, GI tract cells. And so, with hyperthyroid individuals, there's increased cell division. But you remember the skull, the orbit right there is bone. So it doesn't, it's hard. It cannot expand to accommodate increased cell division. In the meantime, your eyes, there's increased cell division there, so it pops out. So that's one of the features of hyperthyroidism. They generally are thin, they have heat intolerance because their metabolism is high. With hypothyroidism, it's also referred to as cretinism or myxedema. So, hypothyroidism, there's two cases. It's either called myxedema or cretinism. I don't think I wrote it down. Both of these conditions refer to or are because of low thyroid hormones or hypothyroid. Cretinism happens in babies and myxedema in adults. So they will also look like dwarfs. But with this one, cretins have also mental problems. Its metabolism is just slowed down. Whereas with growth hormone, their intellect is still intact. It's just they're not growing to their potential, right? This one, they have mental problems also, cretins, but they're also dwarfs. What's myxedema? This is the hypothyroidism of what? Of adults. So, have you ever had, like I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism when I was pregnant, right? You can be diagnosed with hypothyroidism. That's when you gain weight, all that stuff, okay? So the next, endocrine gland, do you have any questions on your thyroid gland? You see the importance of the thyroid gland? It's your metabolism. It's an automatic thing, okay? The next is your parathyroid. We have one slide of the thyroid and parathyroid. And it's very easy. So, the one slide will show this one. On one side, it's very obvious. There's your thyroid follicles. Then you see on the other side, you don't see follicles, you just see epithelium. That's your parathyroid. The parathyroid are nodular glands, 4 of them, just sitting on the posterior wall of your thyroid gland. So they're like pea size. That's why if you notice, if you have any friends who have had their thyroids removed, they have to take calcium supplements. Isn't your parathyroid the calcium hormone, isn't it? Right? It's the one, remember I told you to write that PTH like this. It's the one that increases the the calcium in your blood. It's very easily taken out when we do thyroidectomy. So then patients who have had their thyroids removed may have calcium deficiency, calcium problems. Okay? We've studied your parathyroid when we took up our bones. So what's the target what's the target organ for your thyroid hormone? Give me one target organ for the thyroid hormone. Bones. So when I ask you for a target organ, even though it's all cells, I want you to be specific, just so I know that you know, okay? Like glucose, insulin. It's every cell in the body, but just be specific. Give me one cell. Same for your thyroid. How about your parathyroid? What is the target organ for your parathyroid? Bones. Did I say that already? Okay. Okay, so now we go to our adrenal glands. Our next Endocrine gland is your adrenals. See? Look at. It's sitting on top of the kidneys. I want you to look for this when you open up the cap. It looks like a fatty tissue, but it is a gland. It's your adrenal gland. When you look at this under the microscope, it looks like this. So you remember we studied the adrenal medulla secreting your epinephrine, norepinephrine, remember, with the sympathetic nervous system. Now we're looking at the cortex. So this outer part is the cortex. The outer part is the cortex. The inner part is the medulla. So we studied the medulla last quarter. Now we're going to look at the adrenal cortex. And the adrenal cortex is made up of 3 zones. You don't need to memorize this too much for you. I want you to know the hormones. But they have 3 zones. You can really see it under the microscope. There's the zona glomerulosa. It's like a top, just a kinkiness to it. And then the fasciculata, which looks like fatty globules. And then you have your reticularis. Okay. Which looks like reticular tissue. So, what I want you to concentrate on are the different hormones. The first hormone is a mineralocorticoid called aldosterone. Remember this. You're going to see aldosterone again from here on when we study our renal system, our heart, for hypertension. You will see that hormone. Aldosterone is your salt retaining hormone. So what part of the body do you think is the key for conserving salt? Again, very good. So what's the target organ of this aldosterone? My kidneys. It tells the kidneys to conserve sodium. The kidney is the only one, right, that secretes excess sodium. So when do you need to conserve sodium? When? When do you need to conserve sodium? When you what?
Sweat.
When you what?
Sweat.
That's very good. When you sweat, right? When anytime, just think, when the blood volume is low, when you're dehydrated, when your blood pressure is down, doesn't salt attract water, right? So if we conserve salt, we're going to attract water. That's how we're bringing up the blood pressure, the blood volume. So we go back to our clinical scenario. Maybe I'll have in the test, you have an 18-year-old stab wound from gang violence, whatever. Can you give me 2 hormones that's being released to maintain homeostasis? You can write aldosterone. And you're going to say the target organ is the kidneys. It's telling the kidneys to retain the sodium, prevent it from being released. And along with sodium, sodium attracts water. It will keep the volume. You see? The endocrine system is amazing. If there's a problem with the endocrine system, you will die. Okay, the next hormone that we're going to talk about released by your adrenal gland is what you call your corticoids, glucocorticoids, cortisol, or cortisol. This is secreted by the zona fasciculata. You don't need to worry about identifying these different zones. Okay?
That's your stress hormone.
That's very good. Cortisol is your stress hormone. What is the function of cortisol? Look at this one. Cortisol provokes. What is that? Increased sugar again in the blood.
Prepares you for fight or flight.
That's very good. Prepares you for fight or flight. Stress. Okay? When we're under stress, and please remember, it's an automatic thing. We cannot control this. When we're under stress, the adrenals respond immediately by releasing this. So, when are we under stress? When we're sick, we're under stress. So, when we're really sick, the adrenals release this to prepare us, right? When we're sick, we're trying to fight an infection. But did you know that when you get stressed with the traffic, oh, that person is this is being released.
They don't know the difference.
Have you ever had friends who say, that's right, they don't know the difference? Very good. Stress is stress. I'm sure you've had some friends who say, I can't believe it. None in my mother's side, none in my father's side. I'm a diabetic now, the first in my family. And it's always could be related to stress. Look at, what does it do? Gluconeogenesis. Right? That's why it doesn't pay to be stressed. That's why there's a lot of people doing the yoga. Right? Yoga. It doesn't pay. Just think, the next time you get annoyed with the traffic, you know what? I'm not the only one who gets annoyed.
Okay.
Just the next time that happens, and I try to correct myself because I say, oh my goodness, my sugar is going up, because I can't control it. It's beyond my control. It's an automatic thing. Cortisol is immediately being released. So just imagine if you had a stressful day and compound that many years from now, you become a diabetic. Because why? It's automatic.
I'm thinking that's why a lot of the younger kids that aren't overweight, they're having adrenal fatigue
Yes.
and getting diabetes in their
That's
teens.
right.
Because they're just so
So
stressed
stressed,
out.
even with school. Oh, with their homeworks, right? They're stressed with their homeworks. The meeting deadlines, all that stuff, okay? So let's just all join the yoga. It really, really pays to do that yoga or exercise. Just remember, it's just automatic. It's beyond your control. So don't be stressed out. You can't help this. You won't prevent this from being secreted. It's meant to protect us. And it does protect us when we have an infection, it's an actual stress. When we're sick, this is being released because it wants to supply your body cells with sugar because they're trying to protect themselves or fight the infection. But the other type of stress, psychological stress, you're always thinking about this or that. What am I going to do? Problems, or like, oh, I want him to love me more. I saw my boyfriend. I just don't think about it. It's just not worth it. Okay? Then the next, do you have any questions on those two? Aldosterone. And can you give me a target organ for cortisol?
Muscles.
Muscles, and always liver. Isn't your liver the organ that stores sugar, right? Glycogen. And remember the difference between muscle glycogen and liver glycogen? Remember? The muscle glycogen, it uses its own. It doesn't share the glucose with the rest of the body. Whereas the glycogen that's stored in the liver is able to be released to supply the rest of the body in between meals. Okay? The next endocrine gland we're going to talk about will be, and this is the last, this is your pancreas. You have any questions on your aldosterone and cortisol? So your pancreas, and it is you're going to see the pancreas when we study our digestive system. Oh, it's not here. Where's the other nucleus? Oh, right there. It's not here. Where's our other guy? Anyway. Oh, I have another one over there. Look for the pancreas now with your cat, okay? So, thyroid gland, adrenal gland, but you're just going to look for it. And with the thyroid, try to feel for that pea-sized parathyroid. And then I want you to go open up the belly. right here, and you will see the pancreas. So it's situated inferior to the stomach, and it's actually where the duodenum is. That's where the pancreas is. It's like something fleshy. You wouldn't even think that it's an endocrine gland. So, and we will see pancreas again when we study our digestive system. For today, we're going to look at its endocrine component. When you look at it under the microscope, it's epithelium. The bulk of the pancreas has digestive functions. It makes your digestive enzymes. But look at, there's scattered light areas. You see scattered light areas. You see that? This is light, and then this is all dark. This is the one. This is called exocrine pancreas. This is endocrine pancreas. The function of the exocrine part is to make your digestive enzymes. The function of the endocrine part is to make your insulin and glucagon. So these scattered light areas are referred to as islets, little islets. Islets of Langerhans. Okay? You got that? So for this chapter, we're just looking at the function of these islets. The cells of your islets are the ones that make these two hormones, insulin and glucagon. Okay? So I just ate. My sugar is high. Right? My pancreas will respond by secreting insulin. So what does insulin do? It will go to every cell, deposit the allow the entry of glucose to every cell. It also tells your muscle and your liver to store glucose, right? What is that process? Glycogenesis. Does it make sense? In times of plenty, right after a meal, I know glycogenesis is going on. My liver and my muscle is storing glucose, glycogen. So, I'm done with my breakfast. The next time I will eat, maybe later on. So, in between, some people wait until 6 hours later. Don't you think that in that 6 hours, or like let's say when we go to bed, right? So, how many hours sleep? Maybe 8 hours. In that 8 hours, you're not eating anything. And yet, you're still breathing. Yet, you wake up to the alarm clock. It must be that your cells still have a constant supply of glucose. Where did you get that if you didn't eat while you're sleeping? You got that from here, right? But what will tell the liver to release the glucose? Glucagon. So, in between meals, the glucose is going down, right? Hypoglycemia. You understand? The glucose is going down because I'm not eating, I'm sleeping, let's say, or in between meals. Glucose slowly going down. So when that low glucose blood gets to the pancreas or reaches the pancreas then will secrete glucagon. Remember this one, okay? There are several target organs for insulin. There's only one for glucagon. It's your liver. So glucagon will go to the liver to release the glucose that's being stored here to tide you over in between meals. So what is the event promoted by glucagon? Genolysis. Does it make sense? It will tell your liver, break down the glycogen to release the glucose that will tide you over until your next meal. So if we have glucose metabolism problems, what's going to happen? Diabetes.
So if you take metformin, what part of that does it stop it at the liver or does it stop it at the pancreas? Because I know it stops the liver from transforming it into glucose.
And metformin also promotes the lowering of sugar. It also helps your insulin. It promotes your cells to open up. It helps it to open up also.
So it does both.
It does both, okay? It's called glyburide, isn't it the generic?
Metformin's a generic.
There's another one.
I think glyburide does the same thing too, though.
Yeah, that's right, okay? So both of them. So they help in opening up and promoting the entry of glucose. But of course, nothing replaces the importance of this insulin. Okay? Do you have any questions? That's it for our endocrine system. That's all I want you to study for the endocrine system. Don't forget, with that stress, you see, don't forget, as far as stress is concerned, that's the thing about this endocrine glands. It is beyond our control. You cannot help it. You can't say, oh, my stress is just a psychological stress. Can you please don't release cortisol? You can't do that. It's an automatic thing. Okay? So do you have any questions on our endocrine system? Okay, what I want you to do now is to open up your cat, look for the thyroid gland, just so you have an idea of how they look like. Look for the adrenal gland, but please, you see that all these glands are sitting next to a vital organ, like the larynx. You don't want to poke it. The kidneys you don't want to sever, okay? And also the pancreas. So as you're doing that, you'll be able to identify the different GI tract organs too, or you can reserve that for the next lab. And I'm going to focus. You have a worksheet right here. Your first, who wants the Bio 240 worksheet? Your first worksheet is the endocrine lab worksheet, which has also a few questions. So all of this will be due next week. The questions are very practical. It's about steroids, etc., etc. We're going to study steroids. Yes, I did talk about steroids, okay? With steroids, we're going to talk about the steroids more when we study the reproductive system. But I think there was a question about steroids. Okay, the
anabolic.
Steroids. Yes. So this also talks about steroids. There's another part of the endocrine system. Where's the chapter 16? We just studied the major endocrine glands. But what you should know is you have endocrine glands from head to toe. Let's look at this. Hi!
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy New Year. So let's look at this endocrine, okay? That was the dean, by the way. So look at this one here, the reproductive organs, okay? So they also secrete hormones. You call them steroids. Your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And the anabolic steroids that is part of your worksheet, that is the testosterone. So we're going to talk about testosterone when we study the reproductive system, but just for now, you should know that the testis is an endocrine organ. What it does, it makes testosterone. What is the function of testosterone? Testosterone is the key for the males to make their sperm, number one, spermatogenesis. It's also, there's other effects of testosterone. This is referred to as your sex hormone, right? So testosterone promotes the development of the secondary sex characteristics.
Beards, mustache.
Correct. Your sexy body frame for the guys, right? Their voice, right? Testosterone also promotes muscle buildup. Okay? But there's a side effect to testosterone. Because it increases muscle bulking and increased activity for males, it also promotes increased sugar demand, number one. And it also promotes, this is more important, it promotes increased red blood cell production. Why red blood cell production? Does it make sense? Because when your metabolism is high, testosterone promotes bulking up, all that stuff, then that means you need more oxygen supply. So that's one key side effect of steroid supplements. It increases the red blood cell count in the blood of males.
Which is why they get enlarged hearts.
Which is also why they can drop dead, right? Because increased red blood cell production will thicken the blood. I know you've heard of stories of, let's say, some athletes, they were running, and then they dropped dead. Their blood was thickened because they were taking steroid supplements. And know that negative feedback mechanism, only because that's asked in your test. Negative feedback mechanism, right? These people who take synthetic steroids, yes, they will look sexy, but then they become sterile. Isn't that a side effect? Why? Because the testis, it's getting the wrong message. What it's sensing is a normal level of testosterone in the body. But that synthetic steroid hormone that they're taking in has been modified so it does not affect spermatogenesis. It's only affecting muscle bulking. So the steroid that they're taking in other words, is useless for sperm production. But this is no longer making its own testosterone because it's sensing that you have a high level of testosterone. So they become sterile. Does it make sense? You understand? That's why there's so many side effects to synthetic steroids. So your worksheets, you will notice, your worksheets are always clinical and it's meant to make you think. Okay? So it's due next week. There's another thing I wanted to discuss about the endocrine system, which...
Did you do Monday or Tuesday?
Tuesday next week.
Wednesday.
You mean
Wednesday, Monday next week. Is today Monday? Yes, Monday next week. Okay? Okay. If I remember, there was something else that I wanted for the test. Oh, yes. For the kidneys, I think there was another question. I don't know about your test, but remember I told you, I always like to ask students, what do you think will be the endocrine gland that will respond to this one, calcium? How about anemia? I think I remembered asking anemia. It's the kidney that will respond. They secrete erythropoietin. And I think I asked that in your test. That was like a bonus. So, look at this one. You have hormones being secreted from head to toe. The kidney also secretes a hormone called erythropoietin. And this erythropoietin tells your bone marrow cells to make more red blood cells. It tells the bone marrow to make more red blood cells. So every time you lose blood, let's say maybe excessive bleeding, menstrual periods, you know that your kidney is secreting this one. And it's going to your bone marrow so that you can make more red blood cells to replace the blood that you lost. Okay? I remember asking about iodine deficiency. So iodine deficiency, that's your thyroid gland, right? But if I write anemia, you know that it's your kidneys. It secretes erythropoietin. Okay? Okay, so those gowns, I washed them before the end of last quarter, so they're clean. Open up your cats while I focus, because the first part of your worksheet, see, is asking you to draw. So remember, don't forget how you're graded, right? For the drawing, you have the label. And then this total magnification, remember, it's either 100 or 400. So don't forget, otherwise you'll be marked. So I'll focus the thyroid gland, pituitary, parathyroid. The parathyroid, you know how it looks like, right? The thyroid should be with the colloid, the pink one on one side. So on the other side will be the parathyroid, adrenals, pancreas. The pineal gland, you don't need to draw that one. See, look at this question. This part right here, the first part, in point form or flow chart. Don't be writing an essay for this one. Just flow chart. And people always have a hard time answering this one. It just says, show what happens when the body doesn't produce enough thyroxine and what it does to correct this. You don't have to write an essay. In other words, the first thing you're going to write, low T3, T4. That's what you're going to write. Low thyroid hormones. So what's this going to do? Going to go to the hypothalamus, to the pituitary, to your thyroid gland, then to correct. That's it. I just want to know that you understand the negative feedback effect of all hormones. This is how they operate. So this is what, you can write essay too, but it's very easy. Just it says point form or flow chart. Okay? Okay, everybody? So let's open up our cats while I focus this glance for you. Please use your lab manual to help you look for these structures. Always use your lab manual. There's a very nice lab manual.
I need a pair of glasses.
Billy? Dinner Billy?
Right, so you think that population is like, is still like, let that be
Frizzle?
our Oreo?
So here, this like thyroid and parathyroid. I'm sure you'll be able to figure out which one is thyroid and which one is parathyroid, okay?
Sorry.
Where did you get, oh,
I guess we should get that ready first.
sorry, the black and white ones.
Yeah.
Really? But he's falling apart.
Oh, that smell is familiar. That smells stuff.
Oh, okay. Ain't nothing like the smell of.
Cat in the morning, right?
Yeah, dead cat.
You got a
You
cat?
want a separate thyroid gland for
I'm looking to see what all.
Oh,
like
okay,
to
good.
do. That's not the right drawing. But that's okay. No. I just wanted the title and what we had to look for.
What's that?
We're not sure what. Did you find it online? Yeah, I gotta get. What's that?
We guys it looks like. Oh, come on, just kidding.
All right, where's our Oreo?
Is that the right word?
Yeah, we have black and white too. Ours just
I
looks
work
a lot
night
more
shift,
chocolate.
so.
Oh god. But I'm off on Wednesdays and Thursdays, so I stay Wednesday.
Yeah.
Oh, I make
I'll
have
save
ours.
it for you, just because I'll have to draw it again anyways. So, but thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you for
It used to be.
mine.
Is that one? Is that your guys'? Because ours looks like black. That's definitely not a cat. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of catless too.
Just go around the room.
That was good because our cat got butchered.
Let's ask where the Bix is.
Where's the rest of them? Where did you find those gloves? Are those ones smaller than
No,
extra
they're
large?
large. Yeah,
You're strong. You can carry it. Yeah.
you didn't see me.
Put it floating over here somewhere.
I know,
this cat just got to clean ours. Like we mutilated ours really bad. So. It'll work. Yeah. How much was that? Came out to be just over $6. Yeah. Oh, okay. $6.62 to be exact.
I wonder if you can do a tax on that.
She does it floating around and I don't see anything.
I don't either.
Let's smoke it first. Okay? I'm doing it. Are the ones so wrong? We don't have like our entire table, it's just us.
No, I don't, that's why I don't want to do the job. I don't do it. Like, I changed yours, it's mine. You know the guy?
Did you understand?